Have you ever wondered why two different people can use the exact same technology but get different results? We're going to break that down for you today. Rajeev is going to tell us exactly what you can do to optimize your usage of ChatGPT.
Welcome to Real Estate AI Flash, the podcast dedicated to real estate professionals to demystify AI and give you practical strategies that you can apply to your business today. I'm your co-host, Rajeev Sajja.
And the other co-host, Jimmy Burgess, and we are excited for you to be a part of this. If you haven't had a chance yet, make sure you go out and that you subscribe to the podcast. Also, we would really appreciate if you could leave us a review. It helps us spread the message that as a real estate community, we are stronger together. Now let's get to this episode.
Welcome to another episode of Real Estate AI Flash, a podcast dedicated to real estate agents' use of AI to power their business. So Jimmy, that's a great question, right? So when I first got access to ChatGPT, I was getting all kinds of responses. I was curious, right? Stay hungry, stay foolish, right? Always like curious stuff. And then I started to dig in and look at other people's ChatGPT output compared to mine. Clearly, it was different because of the kind of instructions you were given it. And let's take a step back from it. I've learned this, and this has helped me well in learning ChatGPT and other AI technologies. It is a very powerful tool, number one, but it is still untrained. You just have to learn how to train it. And a good analogy for all of us to think about as a real estate agent is imagine if you hired an assistant, qualified, but they just don't know your business. They just don't know how you operate, how you want stuff to come out. So you can't just throw an assistant untrained and expect the results you'd like to get from a technology like GPT. So think of it as a human being. I know it's not, okay? Some of us are scared. Oh, is there a human on the other side? No, there's no human on the other side. There's a lot of humans actually training the model, but the model is ChatGPT. So if you take that step, instead of just asking it to write something, you got to start to train it. And today's episode is going to give you the right foundation so you get it and you can apply it ongoing. So let's start, Jimmy, with we're in real estate, so acronyms are like abound in real estate. So today we're going to introduce people to two acronyms. First one is 4 Ps. And the first one is, so the Ps are basically prime, prompt, polish, and publish. And prompt is the only one that truly GPT understands. And we covered that in the inaugural episode. But a prompt is an instruction to ChatGPT to do something. But before you instruct, you got to prime it. And that's where we're going to get into a new acronym called REAIF. So think of prime as REAIF as in role, input, steps or specifics, and expectation. So as an example, I'm a real estate agent. I wanted to write a listing description for a property. So let's talk about prime. I believe prime is the biggest part of the 4 Ps. If you do prime well, the others will just flow from there. So let's talk about REAIF. So a role could be act as an experienced marketer with real estate expertise. And you want to maybe social media. You want to do stuff with social media. Act as a experienced social media marketer with real estate industry expertise. So what if I want to write a business plan? Act as a successful real estate coach that has coached hundreds of agents to accomplish their goals. So that's the role. You're defining it the role versus just giving it a prompt. Write me a business plan for 2024. That's not going to be as effective as if you prime it with the right role, right? And then the input, you got to also give it more inputs, right? So as an example, take that business plan one or a listing description one. You can't just say, write a listing description for 121 Main Street. You got to give it a lot more than that. You got to give it beds, baths, things that you don't want it to assume, or the word we say is hallucinate in ChatGPT world, which is it just sort of lies. It just doesn't know. So if you can draw a framework around what you want it to use to kind of come up with what you need, those are the inputs. What if you're doing a marketing campaign and you're targeting homeowners that have equity in their home? Maybe the input is the audience for this campaign is 50% more equity or more equity in their homes. So it's going to start to think about right language around equity versus just saying write a seller campaign. So input is critical, and obviously the steps. And then you start to look at steps as in what do you want to get out of it? Expectations, right? So think about, do you want a blog post, conversation style, or do you want a table? You can ask ChatGPT to write a social media plan for an entire 30 days and put it in table form. But if you don't mention the table, it will just start to write stuff that you're going to have to copy and do more work with. So as you start to embrace these 4 concepts of REAIF, role, input, steps, and expectation, the priming becomes a lot easier for you, and it becomes second nature as you start to use solutions like ChatGPT, and you automatically start to get better outputs than someone that's not thinking that way. Anything you want to add there, Jimmy?
Yeah, no, I'd love just to get some clarification here, because I think this is so good that we probably ought to slow down a little bit right here, just from a standpoint of, let's just kind of go through. I mean, I want to kind of rewind the tape, paraphrase a little bit of this, and then just ask for some clarification. So like when we're talking about the role, act as, so what are we wanting it to be the expert in? Act as a marketing expert, a real estate marketing expert, act as a real estate copywriter, whatever it is, we want to give it the understanding of what its role is in this and who it's acting as. Then the input, just details, whether we're talking about something that we want it to do for us. So what is it that we want as far as the things you don't want or the things that you don't want it to assume? So make sure you're putting details in so that it can get it more specific for you. That comes to the steps, which are basically those specific things, correct?
Yeah.
Tell me a little more about the steps, and then we'll talk about the expectations.
Before we get to steps, Jimmy, the other thing, input-wise, I'm glad you summarized it. You could also say, now that GPT's knowledge cutoff is all the way to September 2023, you can say your role includes the understanding of the Fair Housing Act.
That's great.
Right? I mean, stuff like that, the more you give it instructions, the less it goes off the rails. Right? And steps could be, give me a 7-day marketing plan to promote a property. Give me a 30-day marketing plan for sold listings. Right? So again, giving it more specific instructions and what you're expecting out of it, it will generate that out of the get-go, and you'll get to the 5-yard line very quickly versus taking a lot of time to get there.
Yeah, something I think we always also don't realize is, at least when I first started, is that once you get this initial back, and we're going to go through the prompting and those things, but once you get the initial back from you, if it's not exactly what you want, just ask it to rewrite it in whatever it is, and maybe give it more of, maybe more of these specifics. Give it some of the details and do those things. So that's the REAIF principle. We love our acronyms in real estate. So that's our REAIF principle. Let's get back to those 4 Ps and how this really affects that, if you don't mind.
So now that we've nailed REAIF, and now we start to prompt. Prompt is exactly what ChatGPT, you're instructing ChatGPT to do something. Write a listing description is a prompt. And then write a social media marketing plan. Write an SEO optimized Facebook post. Write again, you can say 100-word or 1,000-word LinkedIn article. That is a specific prompt you're giving ChatGPT. So, but if you prime it properly, it will pull out exactly, it'll give you what exactly you want with the prompt. And remember, I always give this analogy, sports guy. So gets you to the 5-yard line. It's never a touchdown. Okay. And this is where enter the 3rd P, which is polish. Remember, ChatGPT is not a real estate agent. You are. So nothing should get by directly without you proofing it, making sure it's compliant, passes all the tests, dots the I's, and whatever that analogy is.
Yeah.
Right?
Crosses the T's. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so that's the word for polish. So polish is simply reading through it. Is it in your voice? We'll do a whole nother episode on about how to make ChatGPT write like you. But it should be exactly what you think you want to put out. And that's the polish piece. And of course, the final one, you're doing all this to publish it somewhere, right? So you're going to write an email or do social media or write a listing description, take it to the MLS. All of these tasks are the publishing component of it. But once you do the 3 Ps properly, the publish is the easiest part. And so just to recap, we got prime, which is the REAIF principles, role, input, steps, and expectation for prime. Once you nail prime, prompt comes very easily. and then you have your polish, proofing it with your own eyes, making sure it's you, it's your voice, and then you publish it. So if you have 4 Ps and RISE, you got the right foundation to leverage ChatGPT going forward.
Hey, listen, when you first taught me this and I began to utilize this, it makes everything so much easier because once we have a system in place, this is the thing. I think some people get overwhelmed by the technology, or maybe I'm not doing this right. First off, you can't break this. But secondly, by utilizing a systemized approach, exactly the way that Rajeev has laid this out, it changed everything for us because now we went into it asking these questions, making sure we were doing this on the front end of that prime portion, which really helped everything flow faster. So in wrapping up, anything you want to add to this, Rajeev, and as we wrap up today?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, Jimmy, I have 4 Ps and RISE as a background on my computer.
That's
so that I don't forget about it. No matter how much times I speak about it, I keep it in the corner so I know, I got to use 4 Ps and RISE. But in reality, though, I would encourage all of you that are listening to this, apply this and compare your outputs from previous time you've used it without the foundation. And I bet your results are going to be different and better, not just different, better. And can't wait to see you on another episode.
Absolutely. Listen, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to the podcast, make sure you do so. Rajeev and I are going to do our best to make sure that you are the most informed and with the best information possible to utilize this amazing technology to help grow your business. Take care, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
This podcast has been produced by TSC Studios. Music is courtesy of Soundstripe. Audio and video editing is provided by Noah Escobar. Graphic design by Melinda McKnight. And special thanks to Jordan Wilson of Your Everyday AI for the inspiration and expertise.